Many Hmong people have a strong attachment to the traditional way of life, which is centered around agriculture and livestock farming. They prefer to live in remote, mountainous areas where they can continue to practice the traditional ways of life without interference. And I believe it is due to this reason that the Hmong people run into so many cryptids, spiritual beings, and demonic entities out there in the remote jungles where man has never stepped footed. While many of the Hmongs migrated to different parts of the country, living hundreds of miles away from one another, there is one infamous creature or cryptid known to the Hmong people as the Punong, or the Little People, that has been reported throughout times to terrorize villagers living in these remote jungles. But before we get into that, I just want to say welcome back to another Late Night Strange. And tonight, we will be talking about the infamous Little People that tormented a Hmong village in the jungles of Laos and dive into some of these accounts. So without further ado, let's get started. So the small little being known as the Punong has always been depicted as a small little girl and is said to stand around 3 to 4 feet tall, no taller than a small child. Those who have seen her told frightening stories of their encounters, saying that she has long, untamed black hair, crooked fingers that overlaps one another, backwards feet, slanted eyes, and even been seen wearing traditional Hmong clothing. Punong are also reported to be spiritual as well as being physical, appearing and disappearing before the blink of an eye. So most people have seen them on accident when the Punong isn't aware of the person's presence, like my mother who saw one walking home from the gardens. As my mother was making her way back home from the gardens, she mistaken the small little girl in front of her to be just another person from the village, assuming that the girl was going home alone too from the gardens. So my mother, without thinking of anything, sped up her pace to join this little girl because everyone from the village knew each other and keeping each other company throughout these long walks was pretty common. As my mother got closer and closer to this little girl, the little girl then took notice of my mom approaching behind her, jumps behind a tall patch of grass to the left side of the trail and ducked. My mom, seeing this, got a little bit confused, so she went to the tall patch of grass where the little girl had ducked and brushed it aside, and to her surprise, there was no little girl anywhere in sight. And how my mom explained it was, after she realized that there was no girl or any signs of life, she felt this really heavy sense of dread and got goosebumps all over her body, and knew she had probably just seen a Punong. The worst part about this was she said that she still had a few more hours to go before she got home, and those few hours felt like eternity. Many fishermen also reported seeing this little being lifting rocks in creeks to look for crabs, fish, and insects to eat. But some of the most terrifying accounts are those where these little beings follow people back home and torment the villagers, and they were known to bring sickness and death to those that they target. They will roam the village looking for their next victim. As they were also known to befriend tigers, helping them look for their next bride. In the Hmong culture, there are tigers and then there is the Hmong tiger spirit. And the word in Hmong is actually very forbidden to say, but I'm going to say this one time only. The name for that is called Ju Shang. And this entity or this tiger spirit is known to abduct men's wives and transform them into tigress. They were also known to take anybody of talent and beauty. So back in the days, you couldn't praise anybody that they were really good at one thing, or if they were handsome or beautiful, or it's just as simple as calling a baby cute. Back then, if you were to say one of these things to anybody at all, shortly after, that individual would get really sick and then will pass on. And this was pretty much blamed on this tiger spirit that was coming to abduct these talented and beautiful individuals. And how they went about this was anytime those who found anybody attractive or talented, they would say the opposite, calling them ugly or not so attractive or not so talented. But believe it or not, just by doing this, the unexpected sickness and death slowly stopped. And as soon as villagers realized this, word spread like wildfire. Villages to villages, they took part in this way of expression. So even till this day, many of the older generations still practice this, and they truly believe that the tiger spirit, along with his minions, still waits for the right opportunity to strike again. So when a Hmong elder calls your baby ugly, they aren't being disrespectful, they're just being aware of the tiger spirit that still roams this earth. And these tiger spirits were always told to be accompanied by these little beings called the Punong. One of the most famous folklores in the Hmong culture is about an individual called Numplai who goes on a journey to rescue his girlfriend from the Hmong tiger spirit that took her to be their bride. And throughout the story, the Punong is always seen beside the tiger. And I thought all these folklores were just fairy tales growing up, but about a decade ago, a video surfaced and claimed that a small village in Laos had captured a Punong. So in this video, a woman is being interviewed as she told her story of how she fell victim to a Punong. So back in Laos, people still live in these thatch houses made of straw, where there are cracks and opening exposing them while they're inside. It first started off as items and clothing will go missing, for her to only find them a few days later under her bed or in odd places in her home. At first, she thought that her kids or her dad was playing a prank on her, but one day, as she was sleeping, she was suddenly awoken by hearing footsteps outside of her bedroom. It sounded like a normal person pacing back and forth. So she just kind of brushed it off because it was a normal thing back in the days for any young individuals or males to actually go outside of the girl's house they like and talk to them through the cracks of the walls. And this only happened at nighttime, so she thought, the person that was pacing back and forth outside her bedroom was this type of individual. So she brushed it off and went to sleep. But as morning came, she went outside to do her daily chores and said that when she got outside to the spot where her bedroom was, there were tiger tracks all around, followed by smaller cat prints. And by her just seeing this, kind of freaked her out, because Punong are known to come around humans in the form of a cat to mask their identity. As she was staring down these prints, not really knowing what to make of it, she went inside and got her father and told him exactly about all the strange things that's been happening outside of her bedroom, how she heard these footsteps always pacing back and forth, and how some of her items would go missing to only appear a few days later. As he was listening to all of this, he knew exactly what was going on. So shortly after this, when the footsteps came, a strong sulfur smell would follow. The father said that the sulfur smell was so strong that it would gulf up the home with that smell. And they say they knew exactly when it was coming because of this sulfur smell. But this would happen so much to the point where at first they were, kind of terrified of what was going on. But as time went on, they got used to it. So every single time when it came, they would lit up a fire inside their homes and burn hot chili peppers to deter whatever that was coming to their homes every single night to haunt them. In the Hmong culture, burning hot chili pepper is known to be one of the best ways or tactics to get rid of these cryptids, alongside with, believe it or not, boiling urine. But as they did this, they said that the sulfur smell was so strong to the point where, the smell of the pepper didn't even do anything at all, and the hauntings just intensified from there on. And this is when all the activities from outside finally made its way to the inside of their home, where the lady and her kids would feel these tiny hands touch their face when they slept. They will also feel whatever that was coming to their home jump on their beds to sleep with them. She's also reported seeing these dark shadows that was jumping back and forth on her bed and feel the bed rock back and forth. There were also poltergeist activities around the house, moving their fans around and items as well. There was also an incident where the father was cooking in the kitchen and said when he looked to the bedroom, he can see the cloth that was dividing the rooms being lifted as if a kid was playing peekaboo with him. As he kind of focused on the cloth moving back and forth, he couldn't see anything at all. He stared at it for a few minutes and then decided, you know what, I'm going to try to scare it. As he quickly said, "Toy!" Whatever it was jumped and threw the cloth up as it got startled. After that, the father came up with a plan to catch whatever it was that was now inside their homes, haunting them. They can't see it, but they could feel it when it touches them. It also seems to be more physical, as if it can lift and move objects around the house, and even have a sense of awareness. So the father decided to go and consult with the shaman, and that shaman told him in order for him or the family to catch this punong, you'll have to lure it with tiger skin. As he said that, he actually gave the father 2 pieces of tiger skin and told him to put it on the bed where the daughter slept because that's where the most activity was. The father, being a fisherman himself, had a brilliant idea to use his fishing net and place it above his daughter's bed to capture this punong. His theory was, if his fishing net could catch everything on the bottom of the rivers, like branches, insects, along with dirt and plants, it could catch a punong. This was his thought. So that's exactly what he did. He put the net over his daughter's bed, tied a string to it, and just kind of waited for the nightfall to come. He also put the 2 tiger skins that the shaman gave him on the bed as well. And that following night, that's exactly what happened. The kids kept saying that something kept touching their face while they were trying to sleep. So hearing this, the father gets up, lights a fire, and starts burning these hot chili peppers. As he did that, the daughter sleeping in the room said that right away she saw a dark shadow running into her room. As this shadow entered her room, she reported saying that this dark little being was actually jumping back and forth on her bed, like it was kind of like panicking. So as she saw this, she yelled out to her father, who was still burning peppers in the kitchen, and said, "It's in here." The father then replies to her saying, "Let me know when he's on the bed." She then replies right away and saying, "Yes, it's in bed with me." Suddenly, the father gets up, runs over, and cuts the string that's attached to the net, letting it down. The daughter, without hesitation, puts her arms around the top of the net, scooping where she thought that the punong was. As the daughter tried her best to hold down whatever that was struggling to get out of this net, the father then runs into the room and grabs whatever he could find, clothing, extra blankets, just to bind this cryptid. And as the father and daughter was struggling to hold down this creature, the father decided, since the bottom is tied already and this creature can't get out, we got it in a pretty good spot right now. They decided to throw the string on top of a structure to hold the net in place and to figure out what the heck they were dealing with. As both of them took a step back, they realized what they just caught. So whatever that was in that net was struggling to get out. And the whole time, both of them said that this net just kept shaking back and forth, like something was trying to escape. As this was happening, the daughter then runs out of the house, calls his uncles and his shaman to come and see what they've just caught. Because in the village, everybody lives really close together. And the village, they aren't that big. And your uncles or cousins, they only live maybe a running distance away. So as the uncle and the shaman arrive in disbelief, not really believing what was going on or what they've caught, they looked at the net and said, occasionally you will actually see the net shake and move as if something was trying to get out. And they said, this is the first time they ever seen anything like this, and it kind of freaked them out, but amazed them at the same time. The shaman then went back home, gathered his things to come back to do a ritual ceremony to kill whatever that was in there spiritually. Onlookers that were there that night watching this ceremony take place claimed that every single time the shaman went in to cut the punong with his knife, the net would shake violently. And by the time morning came, the whole village was at their doorsteps trying to get a glimpse of what was going on. Even those that came there during the morning reported seeing the net move slightly, but not as much as it was reported that night. They then took that net and boiled it in water, and some even claimed that it was actually urine that they boiled it in, to ensure that this cryptid or this punong was actually dead when they opened it. As they opened it up, all you can see there are now just 2 tiger skins that was placed on a bed that were used to lure the punong. It is told that during this ceremony, the creature has been killed and evaporated. Evaporated or not, these creatures are simply known to be invisible to the naked eye. Everyone who was there during the hauntings and saw the net shake that night swore it 100% happened. And the stories about the punong has lived in Hmong culture for generations. They are as real as you and me and can disappear within a blink of an eye. There's even stories about a certain group of Hmong clan that when they pass on or die, they become the punong. And the reason why I know this is because my sister-in-law is part of that Hmong clan. When they pass away, they're told that they will either otlang or become a punong. So, yep, there you have it. And she is a Hmong Vang for all my Hmong listeners. But believe it or not, there are more evidence out there of a dwarf-like humanoid species than what we have of Bigfoot. Some may argue against that, but scientists and geologists have discovered skeletons, small stone tools, and even mummified bodies belonging to this ancient race of dwarf-like humans. Let's say that if you want to go back to the pre-Christian times in any ancestral heritage, you'll actually find folklores, traditions, and magic associated with nature spirits. And these nature spirits today is what we call wee folks or the little people. Many of the Native Americans believe that these spiritual beings have been here way longer before humans came to be. A long time ago, before the arrival of the Europeans, it is told that these little people and majority of the native tribes interacted with each other frequently. And just like humans, the stories has been told. There are good little people and there are bad little people. Native American tribes also believe that the little people have special powers and abilities. For this, many natives respected them and continue to respect them by offering them goods such as tobacco, food, and shiny objects. But let's say that if a person was to disrespect a little person, this brings with them a long life of torment, spiritual attacks, and hauntings in their life. If you did a great deed for these little people, they have said that these little people will actually reward you and your family with great fortune. They were also known to follow you until they fulfill their promises to you. According to the study at the Scholar Works of University of Montana, more than 500 Native American tribes acknowledge the existence of little people, and about 85% of all of other cultures out there have said to have stories about the little people. And because of this, there are a lot of names out there for these little people. For example, the Cherokee people call their little people Yewanyusti. In the Comanche nations, they call theirs Nanupi. In Irish folklores, we have the leprechaun. In American culture, we call ours elves, fairies, gnomes, and even dwarfism. In Asia, they call them pygmies, duendes, ibugogo, and etc. You can see here that no matter where you go in the world, there are always stories about these little people or these little beings that live out in the woods. And the Punong cryptid is just a little piece of that puzzle. And I believe for those who are interested in the paranormal or love the topics of cryptids, must be open to hearing all about the other species out there, because most of these sightings take place in the same location. For example, Bigfoots are seen alongside of UFOs, balls of light, little people, and even what they call the lady in white. There could be some connections into solving these mysteries if we have a broader understanding about these cryptids. And also be open to hearing the stories about the First Nations folklore, about their experiences with these beings, because they were here first and they have a lot of stories about these cryptids. And that is the reason why I'm here talking about the Punong, because she has so many similarities to all the other cryptids out there. But to end this episode, I just want to tell you the story about my aunt's encounter with the Punong. So this is when my aunt and my uncle were still living back in Laos, and they were married that time and had their first baby. Every single night, their baby will wake up and cry in the middle of the night. Thinking that the baby was just hungry, they fed him and went back to sleep. Then all night, the baby will randomly wake up and cry as if something was bothering him. As my aunt and uncle didn't really think too much of it, thought maybe the baby was just cold, so they moved the baby into the middle where they slept and went back to sleep. My aunt said shortly after that she felt something jump on top of the bed by their foot, and as this kind of woke her up, she brushed it off thinking that maybe it was just her mind playing tricks on her, and while she was falling asleep, maybe her legs must just twitch and move the bed, and that's what she just kind of, told herself not to get freaked out. So as she was putting her son back to sleep, my aunt couldn't shake off this feeling of something not being right, so she decided to just lay back down, close her eyes, and pretended to sleep. As soon as she closed her eyes and a few minutes had passed, she felt that thump again at the end of the bed, and felt as if something was making their way up into the middle section where the baby was. And without any hesitation at all, my aunt reached out and grabbed what she described to be these tiny human hands that were very hairy. She then felt whatever she grabbed that was trying to pull away, but it didn't make any sound at all. My aunt found it extremely strange, but yelled over to her husband, which is my uncle, to get the flashlight and see whatever this was. My uncle, still fast asleep, not really knowing what the heck was going on, took too long so my aunt knew exactly where the flashlight was. She decided to let go, quickly grabbed the flashlight and turned it on and faced it to where this being was, and saw absolutely nothing. She got up, ran around the room with the flashlight, looking everywhere to find out where the heck this being went. But to her surprise, no matter where she looked, under the bed, around the room, around the corner, she couldn't find anything at all. It was as if she let go and this thing just simply vanished. Till this day, she said, for some reason, I could have just used my other hand to grab the flashlight, but for some reason that night, it was like letting go was the only option for me to grab the flashlight. It was as if this, whatever I was holding, had some influence in me making that decision. My aunt to this day also mentioned that she wished she would have seen this creature, but just holding it, she still knows exactly how those little hands felt. And that is it for today, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of me talking about this Punong cryptid that terrorized the Hmong people of Laos. I just want to say that the little people topic is what kicked off this channel, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to everybody who supported me and supported this channel. Whether you liked my videos, commented, shared, or subscribed, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart because we are well on our way to 10,000 subscribers. For those of you who are new to this channel, please like and subscribe, throw a comment down below of your favorite cryptid, and hopefully I'll see you guys on the next episode of Late Night Strange. And like always, guys, stay strange. Bye bye now.